now we have our get ToDos controller function ready, and hopefully it will retrieve the data from the web API. So let's see that in action. So let me run this application. Let me open up the debug window. Let me log in. So there we are, the access token and other information. So let us look at the session storage. We have our access token and the username stored. As we do not have a menu, I'm going to write the URL, pick the route information. So it's going to be ToDos. And one this will give us the due ToDos, and there we are, the information is provided to us. Our controller function is working. Strangely, it is not retrieving the data in the first attempt. Then in the second attempt it is retrieving the data. So let me have a look into that as well. It looks correct to me. Let me go to the to-do service. It still looks correct to me. Let me create a promise object here. And let me run it once. I have the object, and now so we have the access token. Now let's do ToDos, ToDo1, and there we are. We have the data with us now, though it is not properly formatted, but we know that our controller function and the service is working correctly. That is how we complete our ToDos. We do not have any overdue ToDos. Let's change one of the ToDo's date so that it becomes an overdue ToDo. So let me go to the server explorer. So let me make this 2015. Let me save it, run it again. So we have the token object, token data. Now ToDos, ToDo. So for the overdue ToDo, it is ToDo service get ToDos. So it is 3. So let me give 3. Okay, we are getting the overdue ToDo as well. That means to do service is working as we would expect. And also let's take test it for the completed status. Let's go to do data. Let's mark this to do from front end to completed status. That should be the status value should be, let me go to the model to do and status completed is 012. Let me mark this as completed. Let me specify a date, so let it be 7 2 2016. So with that done, let's go to our service and put the parameter 2. Okay, we are not getting, sorry, I have stopped the application, so let me run it again. To do, and the parameter is going to be 2. There it is. This is a to do from front end. All our functions are working as we would expect. Now let us focus our attention to another important concept of AngularJS, and that is directives. So far we have seen or used the directives that are built in the AngularJS framework, and then there are other directives like, for example, ng show that we use to show or hide the div elements. We used those. We used ng model. So these are the directives. Ng message, this is again a directive, Angular directive. Here we have ng model, ng required, ng min length. So these are all directives. But with AngularJS, we can also create a custom directive. There will be a need to create a custom directive when we want to achieve something more, or we want to do something that is not available out of the box in the Angular framework. In those cases, we have to write the custom directive. I'll be using a custom directive to display the menu. Let us work on that. Let me go to the solution explorer and add JavaScript file. We'll call it menu directive. So before I forget to include this in the bundle config, let me first include that in the bundle config. Let's go to menu directive.js. Angular.module. The directives can be actually independent of the app that we have written, so that they can be used across different Angular application. I'm going to give a name of a module for this directive. So it is going to be menu directive. We do not need any dependencies for this, and we require a directive keyword, menu directive. The way we write directive is return restrict. We want the directive to be specified in attributes or as a form element. A for attributes, E for element, or it can also be specified as a comment, but in my case I'm only restricting it to attribute and element. Replace, I'm marking replace to be true. What it effectively does is it replaces the tag, whether that tag is an attribute or an element, with whatever we specified here in the directive. Now there is this link function that interacts with the DOM element, and it receives three parameters. One is the scope, the element objects, and the attributes. The directive basically inherits the scope of the controller from in which this directive is declared, but we can also have the scope of the directive on its own that is completely independent of the controller object, or it can be a kind of intermediary between the controller and its own definitive scope. Here we are inheriting from the scope of the controller. Now what I'm going to do is, if a valid user is there, or I will check the validity of the user by reading the session storage data. If there is a access token available associated with that application, that will indicate that the user is valid, though we should also be reading the time for which the token is valid. But for the sake of simplicity, I am not going to do that. I am just reading the data from the session storage, and I'm making an assumption that if there is a data in the session storage, the user is valid, and for the valid user I'm generating the menu markup. I'm keeping a watch so that if anything changes, this directive function gets notified, or basically we can track the changes in our DOM elements. First, let us check whether the user is valid or not. As I told you that we will do that by reading the session storage data, and it was access token, and if we have access token, then only we are generating the markup for the menu. This is the markup that will make our menu. So now let us go to our layout page. Just change the markup here, so we'll get rid of this. Instead of this, we are going to have menu directive. Though the directive is declared as menu directive without the, check it again, view ToDos. This is the markup that we are going to have for the menu. it will be replacing the element with the HTML that we have written. Let us go to the layout, because this is the page that all the HTML pages will be using. Instead of this, let us write menu directive. In AngularJS, the custom directives are written with menu dash directive. The dash AngularJS automatically converts this dash into camel case format, so it becomes menu with directive with D capital. And when we declare it in this way. So let us run it. The access token has been provided. We need to do a redirect first to make this work. So in the login controller, when the user successfully logs in, we have to redirect him or her to the content page. So I'll be using location service, location dot path ToDos slash to do slash 1. That will take us to the page for the due to dos of the member. So let us log in. It is actually taking us to the page, but still we are not seeing the markup. Let me have a look at this. Inspect navbar menu directive. It is in there, but it is not. Right, okay, I know why it is not displaying it, because the custom directives need to be injected into the module or Angular app. So we have to pass the menu directive here. Let's run that once again. Here we have the menu. So for the first time, when the user visits the site, he or she won't get the menu because the session storage data is not available at that point of time. And once they successfully log in or the session storage data is set, the menu will be populated as well. As you can see, there is no menu item displayed in the navbar, and that is because we do not have a session data in the session storage. As you can see, the session storage is currently empty. As soon as we hit the login, we get the menu item as well. In this application, we are not using the expiry time. We are not actually considering the expiring time of the token, but in real life programming, we need to consider this expiry time as well, so that this token, the user does not use this token for indefinite period of time. Because as we can see it here, there is the validation time for this token. It expires on 19th of July 2016 at 10:04. So we have to consider that as well, so that invalid or the expired token is not used to access the system. Though the system won't let in the use of the invalid token, but we need to have some mechanism, especially when you are building the mobile application. There should be a mechanism in which the token are refreshed as when they are near to the expiration time. We are not doing that in our application. Let's do few more tricks of AngularJS. So as you can see, when we run the application and when we do a login, the user does not know whether the login process is actually taking place, or there is no visual indication of what is going on. And when it takes a while, the user might make an assumption that the application is not working. So we have to provide a visual indication to the user that something is happening or the processing is going on. How do we implement that? So let's do that next. For that, I'm going to use the font awesome. So now let's go to NuGet package manager and download the font awesome. Let's download it. It will be downloaded. There it is. We have that in the CSS folder. Okay, let's copy that to our content folder, because that is where other CSS classes are. Let me copy that there, and once that is done, let us include the font awesome in our bundle config. Font awesome.css. Let's go to the login page. Let me close other documents and let me open the login controller. And let me declare login vm dot is busy equals to false. As soon as we get here, login vm dot is busy equals to true. And here login vm dot is busy equals to false again. So let's go to the login.html, and here just above the form, div ngso equals to vm dot is busy class text center I class fa spinner logging in. Same thing can be done with while adding the data while posting the data to our web API. In the to do controller, we can do vm dot is busy equals to false, add to do vm dot is busy equals to true, then bm.is busy equals to false again, and let's go to the add to do. Ng so bm.is busy. I don't know why I can't type busy. Let us look that in action again. Let me log in. We didn't see the spinning icon. We are still seeing this menu because the session storage still has the data in it. The spinning was seen for a split second, but then it just disappeared. So in order to see that spinning thing, I could introduce a timer or a delay. I have to introduce inject timeout. So you could see that spinning thing. Now let us make the display of the to do little more appealing. While the video was paused, I wrote this markup. So this is pretty simple. When the user is successfully validated, then the to-dos of that user will be populated in the to-dos, and we are reading the content in that to-do array. We know that every to-do can have comment. We are also looping through the comments in the to-do. This has to be inside the main loop, so that is how it functions.